part of the program? Well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, PO Box 195, Charlestown in Navy. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regards to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that when you're getting on the show, you're well organized and we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow our live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. Tonight, the heavyweights are in. The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo.
What happened, Spencer? I almost said Edric W. Stanley. Well, I guess I can say it.
I'm sitting in this chair tonight, so okay. That wouldn't,
But I can say so.
But you can say so.
Okay. So, good evening, Spencer Brand.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the many listeners and viewers of edition of the Let's Talk show here on Vaughan Radio. Let me say good evening to the hard-working and dedicated staff of Vaughan Radio. Good evening to those who are listening in our neighboring islands, in the US and British Virgin Islands, all the way down south, all the way down to Guyana, all the way up north, all the way up to Canada, and of course over the pond to England and those places. Very pleasant and wonderful evening. Webbo, let me take this opportunity to offer all those persons who are celebrating, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or certainly some accomplishment, some milestone in their life. I want to congratulate them, and I certainly hope that they are having a wonderful evening. But to those families who are in mourning tonight, I certainly want to take this opportunity to offer my very deepest condolences on the loss of their loved one, a friend, a colleague, or just an acquaintance. Death, I believe, is a journey that all of us would have to face at some point. And it is never an easy journey. Especially for the close relatives. So I want to offer my very deep condolences to all those who are in mourning. Webbo, there is presently a series of recognition that is going on as the world really is celebrating the International Day of the Boy Child, which occurred last Friday. And the Social Services Department have taken on an initiative a few years now to recognize some of our outstanding young people. And I really want to say, Webbo, that based on the profiles that have been privy to, I think that our young people, in particular our boys, they are shining. And I really want to say congratulations to all those who have been recognized. And even if you have not been recognized, I think that the majority of our boys are still making an impactful contribution within their own space, and I certainly want to continue to encourage them. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I am indeed looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Conrad Niall Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to the staff here at Vaughan Radio, and to my colleagues at present, good evening, and to my friends in the international circle, Toronto and Connecticut. I say hail up to you once again, and to my brethren, Kingo, Junior Herbert, Miami. Good evening, and Webbo, thank you for having me once again. I guess you're aware that I love to be part of these conversation which we hope to bring about some kind of betterment and enlightenment in various circumstances facing the people. I would like to gather up some strength in those who constantly seek to be a better person and tell them when one door is closed, another is open. And to keep pushing and keep focus on the objectives that's before you. And I think this is a message I would like to offer to every individual here on Nevis and abroad, and maybe even so to the Caribbean, because I think we live in a beautiful area of the world, and it's we, us, who I suppose will be determining the future of this beautiful space. And I think we ought to be aware that we are living in this beautiful part of the world, and to try to preserve those qualities that make us very special and wonderful, and make everybody wants to come down here and save up all the money and come to the Caribbean. And so, Webbo, I say thank you once again for having me, and I look forward to a healthy discussion this evening.
Glendale Herbert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. It's always a pleasure being here. But first, I must take this moment to say thanks to all of my friends who've been long life friends, and my entire family, brothers, sisters, and cousins and all the rest, and those are friends who are family as well. We had the occasion where a dear friend of mine, a lifelong friend since tender age of maybe 4 or 5 years of age, was buried on Sunday. Steve Daly, classmate, a friend all the way through. So that I think we don't spend enough time acknowledging and paying enough respects to those who has touched our lives and who has been amongst us as we came through. So I'd like to say, at least pass my condolence on to the family, the entire family, who are very dear friends of mine. Webbo, over the last, as items I think that would have come across, I heard yesterday, this morning actually, that Netanyahu, President of Israel, said that he's going to take ownership of the Gaza Strip. And that's the policy of Israel. That's that's where we are right now. The folks who have been the inhabitants of that area, which is on the coastline that borders Israel, would not be there no more for the most part, and not know the Gaza as what it was culturally over the last hundreds and hundreds, or maybe thousands of years. That is important, and that's an important event. Webbo, we've had some heavy rains here on the home front, and the heavy rains has resulted in a telling as to our infrastructure and our upkeep of our infrastructure in this country. The fallout of that has been telling, where the hospital had a serious leak. And not only that, the hospital in St. Kitts had a serious leak when they replaced the roof recently, I'm told. In addition to all that, but the airport also leaked, which they had some upkeeps and some new renovation rather, within the last 5 years, under the last administration. I think that took place. It tells us that I don't think, in my mind, and for the most part, I don't think that we pay enough attention to upkeeps and maintenance once we do capital projects around here. We don't have, a lot of this stuff requires that you have staff on hand and people on hand to do upkeeps, from painting to touching up constantly, and to keep, you build something but you want it to remain looking nice. You want it, and you have to continue. Maintenance is a part of profile in terms of how you present, and keep upkeep of what you have, and you've invested heavily in these projects. In addition to that, something happened last week, to me, and I noted it, and it was actually a jarring for me, because I went into a major business place last week, Thursday, I think it was, Thursday or Wednesday, and to drop off some forms. And this is a major business space. It's not a government entity. It's a private entity. And they said to me, the persons are out to lunch. Now, the public is a mindset, and I thought that mindset had somehow, we've been relieved that mindset around here by now. But you can't tell me your business that depends on the public for you, for your bottom line in terms of doing business with people bringing money to you, whatever they're doing, and you're out for lunch. A major company in this country, one of the top 3 companies in the country. That made no sense to me. I was flabbergasted by that. I mean, how do you tell you don't have stagger hours? How do you go out for business, during lunch break? It made no sense. So I mean, I think whoever the people who run this entity, I think. Another thing is what I noticed when I went into that business. They had no holding area for the for the customers, and the customers are the ones supporting and making the money. Yeah. And everybody else, the people who works inside the business, everybody else is sitting behind cushy desks and cushy chairs. And to me, if you're presenting your business, you present the best part of your business to the people, to the customers. That is what you're marketing. Not for them, you spend your money in the back office, and the front office, you nowhere to sit, nowhere to write on, and you're a major company. So the way we think about things need some addressing around here, and at least business in terms of dealing with customer service and all that sort of thing. I think this needs some enhancing.
Webbo, before I probably dive into the various topics that Glenn would have put on the table, I want to extend some additional birthday greetings to a gentleman by the name of Samuel Buck, who celebrated his 80th birthday a few days ago. And Webbo, I have known this gentleman, but I looked at him on Sunday, and I'm still in awe that he's actually 80. Still quick-witted, still in his element, and I really want to say happy birthday to him again. I believe that the family would have celebrated his birthday on Sunday in grand style there at the Franklin Brown Community Center. And I thought that the event was one where they really, really elevated him to, as in my mind, up to a king and an emperor status. I believe that he really enjoyed his birthday on Sunday, and I really want to extend happy birthday to him again. Webbo, also to Miss Evelyn Brown, who celebrated her 100th birthday on the 13th. And this is a lady who originally from the Jessup, Scotland Ground area, who now resides in the Prospect. And again, the family in grand style celebrating her 100th birthday. This is a lady, Webbo, that I've known 2 of the daughters who are quite unassuming, I guess, just like their mom, and one of the other family member who resides overseas. I believe that they all would have come together and celebrate her 100th birthday in really, really grand style here in the Prospect area. So I want to say happy birthday again to Miss Evelyn Brown from Jessup's Cotton Ground, now residing in the Prospect area. And again, Webbo, I feel that our people, while they are living longer, while they are, in my mind, having all of their various faculties in place, I believe that as a society and as a nation, there is from these people a significant wealth of knowledge and experience, and they can still give us some great insight as to from whence we have come and from where we are. So, Webbo, I thought that I would interject. I know Glenn would have put a few things on the table. So I thought I would interject before we get too deep into those conversations. Now, Webbo, Glenn spoke about the heavy rains, and he spoke about the statement by Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, President of Israel. But I want to look at that situation from perhaps a different angle. I believe it was just today that the BBC would have reported that somewhere between 12,000 or 14,000 children could very well die because of starvation. And I think that as a global community, I believe that the voices of the capitals from across the world should be, in my mind, speaking loudly to the leader of Israel. I have looked at that situation, and I've seen death and destruction in my mind that we have never really, in my mind, seen before in any modern conflict. Entire populations are being displaced. The level of destruction when it comes to the building stock and the infrastructure of Gaza has literally been, as we would say, wiped off the map. And in the crossfire of all of this, there is a lot of children, the most innocent, the children who, in my mind, are most vulnerable. They are the ones who are being affected in a way that is going to perhaps traumatize them for the rest of their lives. And I believe that the global community can apply a bit more pressure. We are here in this region from the Caribbean. We are a region of peace. And I think that even from the Caribbean, from the capitals of the Caribbean, we can speak loudly that this conflict, in my mind, needs to come to an end and allow the people of Gaza, whatever the resolution and the solution is, that they can have some semblance of normalcy, whatever that may look like. The UN would have indicated as well that they would need over 100 plus trucks of aid going into Gaza to try and not only save lives but also prevent the starvation. Glendale spoke about the position of Israel, that they are now taking over, literally taking over Gaza. And the part that perhaps he did not say, that they indicated in that statement that they would only allow limited aid into the region. And I think, Webbo, that again is applying, from the Israel point of view, maximum pressure on the people of Gaza. It's a terrible situation. I feel, Webbo, that just as we have another terrible situation taking place between Russia and Ukraine, that I believe that the rest of the world as well need to speak loudly on. This Gaza situation, this situation between Israel and Hamas, I believe that the most vulnerable, the children, are the ones who continue to be heavily impacted. When you are getting reports and updates from agencies, UN and other Red Cross, that there are children who are dying from simple things that we here in St. Kitts and Nevis have long past, it raises some real concern. And I think that as a global community, Webbo, that we need to perhaps use the level of diplomacy that we have perhaps from this region as a region of peace to try and see if we can push this particular issue to a quick and speedy resolution, Webbo.
Let me just say, before you gentlemen get into the full discussion, let me just say a very pleasant good evening to Roger Fifield. Hello, Roger. And the folks who've been missing Roger is okay. He will be back soon. So, hello, Roger. Also, I want to say hello to Ted Hobson. I could hardly say Edric, without saying Ted. And at the top of the program, when I was introducing Mr. Brand, I almost said Edric W. Stanley, but I ain't afraid to say so. I don't care. So Ted, I got you. Good evening. Now, I just wanted to mention something, but I'll wait till a little later on because I know a couple of things you gentlemen may have to, do in detail. But I got two things I'd like to mention later.
Well, concerning what Mr. Glendale has said, and fully in support of what Mr. Brand has said also about the Gaza situation, historic and barbaric, but that's the world we're living in today. It's an extreme situation over there in Israel in dealing with the Palestinian people, and to a lesser extent I see a lot of that not so extreme happening elsewhere as well. But this is the world we're living in, and one thing is clear, that justice is not widespread, and the interpretation and definition of a lot of words such as terrorists, such as another words that's applicable to the global situations and conflicts, they carry different meaning based on different scenarios, it looks like. And so justice is not what we hope it would be. Equality is not what we hope it should be. Humanity is not what we hope it should be. And we here are just following through, and sometimes we are afraid to speak, and that is bad. We are small, but we can speak up because our time might just come around. We are powerless. We are dependent, even though they say we are independent. We are very dependent. The word resilience is used pretty often these days. I don't think we are in any way up to that in the true definition of the word. And so, today is the Palestinian, tomorrow it can be us in some direct or indirect way. But that's the world today, and it's very sad. I'm happy to be alive to experience a real genocide, and I'm also happy to be alive to realize that the word terrorist, from the American point of view, carries a definition to the Arabs and the Muslim point of view, and it's just partnership in crime at times that's run the world, and who are the most powerful do the big deals and create the situation they want to create all around us, internationally and elsewhere. And so it's when we speak of the global situation, it's really a sad one, and those who are not really affected by it, I suppose they are in no way of a humane character. Humanity is definitely not being looked at as truly the existence of people in a humane way. It looks to me like dealings and partnership and personal aggrandizement. I sometimes can't explain it, but it looks to me like America and the European Union, they are friends when they want to. It looks like with Trump in office. Those two countries or regions seems to has no kind of feelings for the Palestinian and what is going on in Palestine. I know they're quick to talk about October 7th. I know that was a real bad situation and a bad thing to have committed by the authorities or the Palestinian people. But it didn't start there. You know, the Netanyahu government, the new government, the extremist government, they armed the people of in the settlement with machine guns throughout the whole of the period prior to October 7th, and they've been very destructive to the Palestinians constantly for over 50-something years, totally disrespecting their existence, their loyalty to their family and their land. I don't think they see them as human, really, and so that's a problem. And that's the problem we're dealing with as it relates to them. And we know that the Russia and Ukraine war, that again, it sounds like now is Ukraine starts the war. We know it's different, but you know, things turn around the way the authorities want them to turn around to suit their convenience and so forth. I hope that didn't start happening around here, and I pray that when I introduced myself tonight, I spoke about the nice area that we live in, but it can be turned around by some, you know, people who somehow find themselves in position of authority and decide to do injustice in some way or the other. I can't say much more about that because I think the whole world knows what's going on globally as it relates to the Palestinians and what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Africa, you know, and what Trump is on about, you know. But there's one thing I want to talk about because I received some information just recently, and it's more localized now, you know, and they had a survey. And what was revealed in the survey, it's about the importation of food throughout the CARICOM. And we realized that St. Kitts Nevis has come third behind Trinidad and the Bahamas as it relates to the percentage of food imported. I think that's very concerning. I think because when you listen to the agriculture minister in St. Kitts speaks, everything is going fine and it's never been so good. And when you listen to the agriculture minister in Nevis, everything is going absolutely fine. It's never been so good. But to me, that is a worrisome statistic, and I don't know if my colleague would like to have something to say about that. We can probably, not just us here on One Radio tonight, but all of us, the politicians, and can really go about finding a solution to this and finding the reasons why we have such to me devastating. It requires great urgency that we here in the Federation have placed third behind Trinidad and Bahamas in terms of food importation in the Caribbean. And I think, what do you guys say about that?
Well, you know,
it's heavy to me. I don't know if
yeah,
I like to
you know.
guys.
Well, we haven't been really investing heavily in food, not just food agriculture, but not just that processing. I think we made a feeble attempt at that food processing, but I don't think it has ever come really off to fruition in any real way. Here in Nevis, I meant. But I think it's needed. Of course, it lowers your bill, your food bill, meaning that your dollars that's going out of the country, you have more. As a result, you would have more dollars in circulation. The idea is always to have more dollars or more currency circulate as many times as possible in your economy before it escapes the economy. The point when that happens, it means that if there's $1,000 in the economy, only $1,000 in the economy for everybody to spend, it simply means that Spencer will get a chance at buying a washing machine or a refrigerator or whatever he chooses to buy, and now you have a chance at some point because he'll spend it here, and it comes back to you to employment and what you make, the monies you make, and the money circulate. If you have dollars escaping the economy, it means that you have less. There is shrinkage. as a result. So I'm putting in the simple terms, and so it's not a good thing. That's why countries want to grow more and export, because you capture more dollars when you export, foreign currency when you export. So it's not, in terms of policy, in terms of planning the way
Glendale,
forward.
let me just get this and see what this person want to weigh in. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good night. I'd like to weigh in on the Gaza issue. Well, not so much weigh in as ask the opinion of your panel on why do they think that the world is basically ignoring what's happening in Gaza. That all the nations seem to be tiptoeing around this. Even the Arab nations, who you'd think would have had a vested interest in making sure the area is safe, and they have some kind of, whether ethnic or otherwise, attachment to the Palestinians. Why? How come everybody just hands off of it while they look at what exactly? I mean, you can see it happening before our very eyes. The kind of genocidal tendencies there, and everybody seems to be tiptoeing around it. The news media, where we normally get our news, not Al Jazeera, but like CNN and BBC and the Western media generally, seem very careful, very cautious not to offend Israel. And I don't understand how in a democracy that is possible. How come, I mean, even when there's dissent on the street, whether it's London or in New York, that all of a sudden the protesters seem to be ostracized. Can you explain it?
Caller, I get your point. Could I weigh in by asking you a question, and perhaps as you ponder, you answer the question, it might help you get a different perspective, perhaps a perspective that you're looking for?
Okay.
Okay. As I listen to you, I'm thinking it's, as the Donald would said, it's a beautiful question. And so I wrote it down as you were listening, and I said, this thing is deep, what this gentleman is saying. So I wrote, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. In fact, I think it was this morning I might have heard in the international news something in reference to Malcolm X, and they pointed out what he stood for in principle and what he fought for. And then Martin Luther King, the gentleman who got his head busted and so on, who died recently, a few years ago, United States, the congressman. Yeah. I forget his name slips me at this point in time. And so you can easily say what these guys fought for, what they stand for. Now, I ask the question now, the current or the most recent leaders, can you easily say what they stand for, what they fought for? I'm not talking about taking up the office. What they stand for, what they stood for, what they fought for. And that might help you with the question that you have.
I don't know that explains it. Because,
no,
okay.
Well, walk with me. While you're thinking, Glendale is nodding his head in maybe agreement with what I said. So let's see if Glendale wants to weigh in, and then you can. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, Glendale, go ahead.
Well, of course, I think Webbo is onto something. There's nobody who's standing up in terms of a leader, moral high ground. But if you trace history back, when the Jews, World War II, Hitler had his way, and everybody stood on the sideline. Neville Chamberlain stood on the sideline. The United States stood on the sideline until the very last moment for years. They allowed him to have his way and to route through Western Europe. You know, for the war started, and that went on for a good number of years. And during all the his prosecution of the war, and during the carnage that he carried out. So you've had that. Now we have the United Nations. Back then you had a thing called the League of Nations. The United Nations came about now since 1940, 1950. And since that has happened, you have the people who sits on the Security Council, which is, I think, 7 nations. And any one of them can veto. You know, you cannot get a consensus. So even the war going into Russia, you can't get a consensus because Russia can veto it, or China can veto it. So you cannot get consensus when it comes to Netanyahu, whatever Netanyahu does from that point of view.
Okay, caller, does that clarify it a bit?
It still doesn't explain why, because remember the League of Nations, I think, came up as a result of, well, it was really...
Okay, let me put it different.
So you would think we would have advanced, because,
yeah,
I mean, how long has it been?
Let me try once more. Glendale brought it a little simpler in my view, and you didn't get it. So let's see if I can get as simple as ABC. If you have a situation where people are not standing up morally for certain things and not making the sacrifice, and I think that is, in a sense, what you were speaking to.
Yeah, but asking why? How come?
Yeah,
after all these years?
But you see, that's what I'm saying. If people get the offices and the positions and the trimmings that come along with it, right, and not understanding that leadership is not easy, you know. I mean, I had to make a point today, and I've been making it a lot. I find even in our own societies, you have a problem, and you go to find the supervisor or the boss, and they're dodging. I mean, and literally hiding. I had a couple of issues I had to deal with, and when the people see me, they hide, run, go in bathrooms and all sorts of things, and these are people in positions. You have an issue with a particular thing, a department or whatever, and they refuse to deal with the problem, but they have the position.
So you think it just boils down to bad leadership, to a lack of courage?
Well,
for leadership.
I wouldn't make the conclusion. I gave you the facts.
Okay, but
is that okay?
In the meantime, thousands more innocents gonna die.
But that's
I mean, it's really pathetic.
Okay, you know? so you get it now then. So it's good to go as easy. Work with me.
I guess I was trying to get you to
I did
some solution.
Yeah, and I did. So it's good when you come as simple as ABC. Thank you, caller. Who else want to weigh in?
Well, I wanted to add something to what the caller was saying, but I wanted to look at it from a slightly different angle. From my observation, it appears to me that a lot of the leaders and a lot of the nations who I feel have, in my mind, some influence or some direct line of contact with Netanyahu, they would want to see, Webbo, that these terrorist, quote-unquote, organizations be a thing of the past. From what I have observed, I feel that they have allowed Israel to deal with this matter a particular way, but I feel, Webbo, that the response has been somewhat disproportionate. There are many leaders, many nations who would not necessarily want to deal with these terrorist organizations. So I feel that they may have allowed Israel to carry on in a way that has brought, in my mind, the level of death and destruction and total devastation in this area. That has been, and like I said, that has been my personal observation and my thinking on the situation. Because I am certain that if a place, for example, like the United States, Great Britain, continue to apply, and I noticed that England did something today. They summoned the Israel ambassador, and the ambassador basically had to report and give certain explanation and so on and so forth. And Israel made a point of saying that nobody is going to deter them from doing what they are doing. So I feel that even if the pressure begin to now apply to Israel, I think that Israel is at a point where they have had a free rein and a free hand to do what they want to do, and it's almost impossible now to stop them.
Well, I think any transgression against Israel is transgression against America, and I think that is the main issue. No one wants to step too heavily on America's toes, and to me that is what is going on really. If you come down on Israel, then you're coming down on America, and who wants to do that? No one wants to do that. And so, I suppose these alignments and so forth have some meaning still. In terms of the terrorists, okay, look at Syria. The leader today was last year called a terrorist organization. Yeah. He was running a terrorist organization. Yes. And Trump now have lifted all sanctions from Syria. And so, and that's why I say in the beginning, the definition of a terrorist changes every day. It depends on the circumstance that they're dealing with. I don't see Hamas as a terrorist organization. The leader of Turkey said Hamas is no terrorist organization. And, I mean, Netanyahu said he won't stop until Hamas is totally wiped out. Hamas ain't going nowhere. Hamas seems to be there all the time, having meetings with all kind of people all across the globe, you know. So, I mean, to me, he simply wants to totally get rid of the Palestinian people with American support and with the silence of Europe and all those who are afraid to step on America's toes. And, of course, the medias of these countries, they have taken a line. It seems like they're not impartial in their report, in their reporting. We see CNN is basically anti-Trump, and at the same time they're aligning themselves with what America stands for, regardless of whether it's the Democratic or party in power or otherwise. America stands for supporting Israel regardless of what. And so the American media is a part of that campaign also. Britain, same way. And so the ways of the world is quite distasteful, basically.
Webbo, I just wanted to say that we just got some help from one of our listeners all the way in the US. The name that we couldn't remember was John Lewis. So
yeah, John Lewis.
The name completely eluded all of us, and we have a listener all the way in. I believe the person is in New York. I just wanted to say thanks for helping us out here.
Right. You know, there's a old time saying, a slip of the tongue in a fall of the mind.
So I just wanted to thank that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. There are a number of other persons' names you can call who took the sacrifice and all that, and we are benefiting from what these people sacrifice, and we are making no sacrifice for those who are coming in, and we like to talk about America and so on. That is safe, but in the same thing is here too, you know, in St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about.
Oh, you're thinking, but you didn't want to say it.
Well, that's what I say in the beginning. I do hope that these things really don't get a chance to grow in these places, but ICCs have been planted, and it can easily turn itself around. I spoke to the extreme situation in Israel and elsewhere, but not too extreme down here. But I see a lot of things, because you see humanity. You're talking about humanitarians, Webbo, John Lewis, Malcolm X. These are people care about humanity and human rights. But we don't see that in people like Trump, do we? We don't see that in people like the leader of France. I mean, France is well known for their attitude towards their colonies and black people, I suppose. England, and so that lack of the humanitarian quality is widespread. Is widespread, and the few people who have risen up and stood up, as you have mentioned, John Lewis, Malcolm X, and people like Martin Luther King, they're difficult to surface these days. I mean, we see one coming up in Africa there, in Burkina Faso, right?
Yeah, Ibrahim Touré.
Ibrahim Touré, and we'll wait and see.
And they said there have been so many 16 threats against his life, meaning in terms of assassination
I was
attempts.
400 and something.
That's the last one I saw.
16?
Yeah.
That is nowhere close.
It's gone way beyond that.
Way beyond.
Okay. So, he must not, I guess he must not be allowed to succeed on his project, in this project that he's on. France has had a real torrid history as it relates to how he dealt with its colonies.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 14 so-called francophone countries of Africa. They're being the harshest there is. But, again, the story is an old story, because the first Holocaust was actually carried out in Namibia by the Germans. Yeah. And that's how they practiced the Holocaust. And they ended within the last 4 years having to pay reparations to Namibia. Yeah. The Germans had to settle this. The way they went about the killing in Namibia. France, we know France has held on to those 14 francophone countries, not just held on to them, but subsumed them. Even from the currency, to extracting the minerals. Imagine you're taking an ounce of uranium, from Niger, and you're giving the Nigerians 80 cents for an ounce, and selling it in the global markets for up to $300 US dollars per ounce.
Well, no.
And this is kind of exploitation that takes place up until today.
You remember those Africans that went and fought for France, and they came back and asked for their pay, and look what they do. Yeah, they kill all of them.
Exactly. So they have a torrid history there. I mean, it's just. I mean, in my mind, it's high time that a lot of this stuff stops, and Ibrahim Touré represents a rebellion against that, and has gotten a number of countries to follow him in his footsteps, like Niger and a few of the others, francophone countries. You would always have to have complicit people who are Africans who would go along with the Western powers, subjugating powers, such as the folks who run ECOWAS and everything, the black folks. But the point is, I'm saying, it is not easy to stand up because they kill your leaders. They have a host of leaders, a litany of them, where it goes all the way back to the first one, Patrice Lumumba. You would know that in '63 when the Congo got their independence. So this is ongoing, and it's not going to change. This is not a new phenomenon that's happening. This has always been. And people stand by and look at cleansing, ethnic cleansing, or they look at programs or whatever you call that, the cleansing of people, and the world stands by and watch. And it's not a pretty sight. We question it. If that is happening today, we question it again. On and on it goes. It never stops. But again, the real question is, who are the leaders who are standing up? And we cannot point to any except the one of Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Touré right now that stands up in a big way. There are a few more, like around the area, like Niger, like I said, in Niger and places like that. But for the most part, a lot of these leaders end up capitulating, and and it's not a good look. You know, it's not a good. I often say, our media reports, for example, even in Africa, they will say, for example, Africa has jungles, as you remember them things. Africa, well, what is Europe has forests? What is the difference between a jungle and a forest? But it's how you use words. Mercenaries worse than freedom fighters. You understand the power of words and the projection, and objectifying people. You have to objectify a person first before you can kill them. And demean them.
Webbo, Glenn would have also put on the table the recent heavy rains that we have had throughout the region, and the various incidents of flooding. Well, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I've seen some footage, I believe, out of Anguilla, St. Martin, PVI, some of those regions. Even in Trinidad, we are seeing some significant flooding. But what we are seeing is, in recent times, the school of thought was that in designing some of these drainage, the engineers would perhaps design for what we used to term as a 25 or 50 year rain event. We are now seeing, Webbo, that these rain events are not necessarily happening within the time frame that a lot of the drainage systems were initially designed for. Differently put, we are getting what we would normally call perhaps 100-year rain event happening ever more frequent. So the drainage system that may have been designed 10, 15, 20 years ago are now not necessarily living up to their design capacity or their design capability. That has been an issue and a phenomenon of this global warming phenomenon, where we are getting more torrential rainfall. We are getting rainfall that is the level of frequency is now up to what we call almost extreme situations, and it's happening more frequent. The runoff of these heavy rain, in other words, are not necessarily occurring at the rate that the drainage system can accommodate. So you have, in some areas, backing up and flooding. It is something that I know that all of these territories in this hurricane belt have to take a second, a third, and a fourth look at, because these events are happening more frequent. It is putting more stress on the system. It is forcing these territories to take another look really at their infrastructure design, especially when it comes to drainage. I think that we here in Nevis have I would say that we are kind of fortunate, actually, where if you look at how the island of Nevis is, you have Nevis Peak in the center of the island, and once rain falls, it basically dissipates completely around the entire island. There are some territories who do not have that kind of quick access, so to speak, from the center of the island to the ocean. The distance that the water have to travel is a lot longer, so you will have a lot more water building up. So there is a lot of reason why some islands have the various flooding occurrences, but a lot of what we are now seeing, Webbo, the designs and so on, the engineers are now telling you, listen, what we are designing and what we have designed for in the last few years, you now have to take another look, because the frequency of these rain events is happening more regularly, and with the capacity, so to speak, is something as well that we have to begin to look at.
And one of the other things too, Mr. Grant, I think that we are guilty of generalizing a lot of things without evidence and data.
Yes.
Because I hear sometimes even people who are in certain positions who know better making certain sweeping statements. we used to have heavy rains before. We used to have floodings and stuff like that. But some of the people who are making sweeping statements and accusations don't have the data, don't have the information, don't have the evidence. They say it loosely, and that is why a lot of persons don't debate. They just talk and say things, and people take it up, right? So that topic actually was one of the things that I said I had to mention when I heard Glendale mention that we had heavy rains and so on as they fallout, because the hospital leak and someplace leak and so on. So what does that mean? So the hospital leaks or the airport leaks, and you curse the prime minister or whoever the minister is. So if you were the minister, you wouldn't leak? No, I don't have a problem people criticize and curse and stuff like that, but when you're going to have a debate, you got to come better than that and show me where and how that were you the minister and the same hospital was there and the same thing happened, that it wouldn't leak. So this thing that every time you have something and a pothole appear and then it, we sound as if the sky falling in and stuff like that and so on. And Glendale shouldn't be there, it should have been Naya or something like that. Again, I don't have a problem people making those statements, but when you're having a debate, it's different.
Well, it's quite easy to say if I was a minister, I would have made sure review such buildings as priorities and make sure that the roof can withstand heavy downpour as we
you don't know about roof and designs and all those kind of things.
Well,
nobody loves a light. Work with me. Nobody loves a light moment more than me. But then there's a time and place for everything. Meaning when you're talking serious, then now we talk serious. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Webbo. How are you? This is David Joseph. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm doing fine, and say good night to the panelists here.
Good evening, sir.
I want to weigh in on something that Naya said earlier. He was talking about agriculture in Nevis, and everyone is saying it's doing well and so forth. And I just want to, I have to comment on something. Now, on the 3rd of April 2024, I made a presentation to the government. I present them a proposal for fish farming. Myself and a partner, we looked into it. We spent some money on it. We went to St. Kitts, visited Mr. Laplace's fish farming project down there, did some stuff up here, and we found out that there was one or two persons who the government from here sent to Japan to train on the fish farming business. We made contact with them. We asked them to help us do a proposal. We paid them a certain amount of money to give us a rough proposal. They did that. We went to a couple of people in the government, and we got their input. And we had, as a result of their input, we had to rewrite the proposal. Add certain things that were suggested to us in the proposal. And then on the 3rd of April 2024, I myself gave out 5 copies of the proposal to different persons in government in Nevis, including the Minister of Agriculture, because we thought that the government thought, I was thinking of this, the country feeding itself by 2025. We thought the government was serious about it, and we thought of raise a certain amount of cash with the intention of doing this. All we wanted, because none of us had it, was an acre of land. At acre of land, we found an acre of land. We found a lot of land, but certain places we couldn't use it because the contamination and stuff like that. And after we did all the thing, we found an area where we can use, and so we applied it. It's under the Ministry of Housing and Land. I spoke to the gentleman in charge, and he told me, well, it's a good idea. Write a proposal and present it to us. We gave him a copy of the proposal, and as I said, we gave the Ministry of Agriculture, we gave a couple of the people in fishery proposals. And up to today, we haven't even got something to say we received the proposal. I know they received it because I presented it to the office myself. As a matter of fact, I gave the Minister of Agriculture his copy right in his hand. And up to today, they haven't even acknowledged getting the proposal. So when I hear I talk about agriculture tonight, and it brings back my mind that I don't know if we here in Navis are really serious about agriculture. We said, agriculture is fine and so forth, but where it is and where it could have been is plenty different. So I would like to hear if anyone has anything to say about that.
Might I ask a question?
Please.
How long have you been, in terms of turning in the document to now? How long is the wait?
And the 3rd of April 2024.
Okay.
I gave the gentleman, we had that complete. Before that, we went to St. Kitts and visited with Mr. Laplace. And as a matter of fact, we was even invited to set up the operation in St. Kitts because they said they were willing to give us land and give us, help us with certain things they had. But none of us from St. Kitts, so we decided we're going to do it here.
Okay, so I got you, and that gentleman, I know him, the minister, and he normally listens, or somebody will tell him, and let's see what happens after tonight. Okay, let's see whether you get some sort of answer, work with me, and feel free to give us the update. Okay.
Yes, I will if there's any update to give.
But that's what but you're not working with me, David.
Go ahead.
So I said that I think they now hear you, and let's see, give it a little time and see whether or not you hear from them, and feel free to let us know whether you hear or you didn't hear. Okay?
All right.
Okay, and just one more thing. Yeah. I miss you at the bad stream.
Yes, I right now I am actually right at the bad stream right now. I'm sitting in my car listening to you guys. Yes, I don't. That's another project that when the 50th anniversary for the cultural armor came, just before that, I went to a couple of people in government, and I could call their name because they can check me. You can check with them. I don't know. I spoke to Mr. Meade. Now we have a group of people who did who volunteers for the bath stream, Friends of the Bath, and after we see them doing a lot of work here, and it was nice work. But we said that the bath stream itself wasn't not much being done, especially in the gut area. So I approached Mr. Meade, and I said, Mr. Meade, look, just give us permission, and myself and the group will go in there and give the bath what we call a deep clean. We'll go and take out the slabs, because I know that the slabs is due to be, basically when we put them in there, that was the plan. After a certain amount of years, we'll take them out and clean the gravel that's underneath the slab and give them a deep clean so the temperature could come back up. And I also showed him certain things. I mean, I'm here at the bar right now, and I could tell you that if we have, now and then we've been having earthquakes and we've been having gut runs and so forth. One day we're going to lose all those slabs that we have in there. And with the erosion that we have under the walls and so forth, we're going to lose a lot of our walls. Even the bridge, we're going to lose that. I demonstrated it to Mr. Meade, because I took a boom and I pushed it right up under the tiles, the slabs that's in the ground, push it right up on a complete boom length up under it, and it's hollowed.
Okay, and what was the effect or the result of your conversation with him?
So, as I said, I spoke to Mr. Meade, and he said me, oh, yes, he's going to get back to me. Then I called Mr. Hanley's office. They said they're going to get back on to me. I spoke to Mr. Daniel, and they said, oh, it's a good idea. Giving it a deep clean for the 50th, it would be a nice thing. And we were going to do it for free. All we needed is permission. We have the tools and everything. They're going to get back to me. And up to now, no one has got back to me.
Okay.
And I'm here right now tonight. And I don't know if they clean it today, but last night I was there, and it has a lot of muck in it. Well, that is understandable because a lot of rainfall. But as I said, no one have got back to me on that from when they last year. Was it last year?
Okay.
When they had everyone, plenty of people coming in and so forth. We wanted to just do it because the government spent a lot of money in making it look nice.
Okay, I got you. Also, now, is that the reason why, or perhaps a part of the reason why the stream is not as hot as it normally is?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Because work with me. I heard, I had discussions with certain people, and they did tell me exactly that in terms of the cleaning and all that and so on and so forth. One last thing, let me just guide you accordingly. Generally speaking, when somebody who works in government tell you that they will look into it, or they'll get back to you, okay? So thanks much.
You see, I didn't want to make any waves because they were spending a lot of money.
Hello. You didn't make any waves. Don't want to. Let's leave it there for now, okay?
Okay.
The waves don't make.
Thank you. Right.
Waves don't make. Watch brand you see.
Let me say this, Webbo.
Before you say that,
yeah.
I made a statement earlier, you see, and certain things remind people of certain things. I said that when we keep talking about the United States and how people don't stand up for things and so on, I said, but it happens here too, and then you all shift again to Nigeria and all sort of things and stuff like that, and we got issues here to face, right? I keep saying all the time, people bluff and they run and they hide. It don't make sense, even sometimes complain to the boss, because the boss is who indirectly and sometimes directly instruct them to operate that way, and you get very frustrated, right? And as I said, I can give examples of people who dodge you, run and hide and stuff like that, and they, these are people who are supposed to be serving. You're trying to get something done. So these things people are speaking about are real. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yeah, good evening. Considering what you said earlier about data, right? People making sweeping statements without data. I agree totally, right? Because I suspect that we've had much more rainfall than we did recently. But what I think was different about this was that it was intense in just localized areas. And it would be nice to know how many inches of rain fell in particular areas. Okay? Because you have to distinguish between flooding and the cause of the deluge causing leaks.
Caller, before you go on, you notice you just said it'll be nice to know?
Yeah.
You know where you can know that data from?
I don't know if the weather information...
The Met Office at Golden Rock
would provide it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where... I'm not saying that they have it all there to tell you, but in terms of configuration and construct, right? For instance, I wanted to know one time what was the inflation number for St. Kitts and Nevis. My training tells me, okay, statistics department or so and so be the case,
right.
And okay, I'll get back to you. I will call you back and stuff like that, and that's the end of it. So this is what I'm talking about. But the guys at the Met Office, I am sure they'll be able to tell you. Work with me. I find they're very cooperative, professional, and efficient. So try that.
Okay. But I think, I suspect a lot of the flooding came because we've been building, which means that there's less possibility of, water soaking in the ground, actually keeping the water soaking into the ground. Okay, so it runs off and floods, right? And of course, the fact that we don't really do maintenance well. So you find that even though they might have graded the verges when they were building the roads, nobody really keeps up with it, and from time to time, debris and so gets into the culverts and so on and clog them up. And I think it's partly a maintenance problem. I think, too, that you have to bring these things to the fore and not, I think, give excuses for those who are charged with the management of these things. Okay?
Caller, let me ask this, please. For those who are charged with the management of these things,
Yeah.
right? And sweeping general statements. In terms of, let's say, government, because people, we always like to talk about government. You know that government has a structure?
They do, yes.
Okay, and so you have persons, whether it is Glendale or Naya, as the minister. You know they have a structure, a management team that manages certain things?
Yes.
Okay, so whether Glendale there or not, it should and normally should be managed. You agree with that?
Agreed.
Okay, so, but nonetheless, when it is deficient, you hear people blame Glendale and Naya directly. You agree with that?
Because the buck stops with them, yes.
Right, the buck stops with them. But no buck, no, there's no buck that is with the management, those persons who are supposed to manage it.
Yes, of course.
Okay, but we don't highlight that.
Of course we highlight it.
Oh, really?
Yes, we do, but the buck stops at the top.
No. Let's still spend a little time on this. When you have, for instance, somebody, Glendale says that we had a falling out. Fallout. Yeah, falling out. Fallout. Okay, that's all right. I'm working with you. With this heavy rains. And where was leaking. You heard anybody mention that management people?
Yes, I did.
Oh, yeah? Who they mention?
Oh, not in terms of names.
Oh, that's the one thing.
managers.
Walk with me. It's,
Right.
it's one thing with me, you know. you can't bluff me so easily.
Nobody's trying to bluff anybody.
No, but I don't say.
Glendale name easy to call because he's at the top. We don't necessarily have to know who the manager is, but we can know, for instance, that there was no reason why a roof should be leaking to the extent of what we saw in the pictures.
Let me ask you this. If, hypothetically, when the Public Works Department in any island has an engineer, all these fancy titles and stuff like that, and people who drive the backhoe and so on, that is their daily and weekly job. And they do not do it and everything. If people were calling them out, do you not think it will make a difference? If Naya was the person who is a civil engineer at Public Works, and then things are going haywire, and instead of attacking only Glendale, who is the minister and just became the minister, and they bring in Naya and say you ought to be doing your job, you don't think that we'll get probably better results?
But if Naya is the manager, yes.
Right.
But remember to
walk with me. Do we do that?
Yes, of course we do that.
Oh, really? Give me an example. Okay. Give me an example. Hello. Walk with me. Give me an example, because we always having things about the hospital and all these other things and stuff like that and so on. So it'll be easy to give me an example of one of those issues where they call out not just the minister but other persons.
I've listened to many talk shows where you have people say,
hello, hello,
for instance. I'm giving you an example.
Walk with me. Let me clarify. I only want one, not many.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I'm giving you an example.
Yes.
in a particular community.
No, call it.
Okay.
Yes.
Irish Town.
Yes.
Why they don't clean, the sweepers don't clean the drain? Right? They're not calling names.
They're not calling. But you're not listening to me. Listen what I've learned over the years. And I think I appreciate people giving me credit for it. They say one thing with that fellow Webbo. He could listen. So it will help if you listen carefully to what people ask you and answer accordingly. I said, give me the names. You don't think if we not say, why the person in charge? No. Naya is getting paid as a civil engineer in public works, and these things are happening, and just like you call the minister name, Naya. Why Naya don't go and do it?
Why would the people know the persons who are cleaning the drain?
Why not?
Some people's names are easier to call.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I got you.
No, the minister in charge of
okay, so let me ask you this. So because you think that what happens is those other people are hard to know and the names are hard to call, that's why we don't ask them to do their job.
And overall responsibility is the person at the top.
Yeah,
They're supposed to supervise them to make sure that they do the job.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I understand that. But I'm asking, what if we were to put everybody's blame where it's supposed to go? Because when the pay is being handed out, they do not hand it out to only the man at the top and say, you're overall responsible, so here is all the pay. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Right, so they get their share of the pay.
Uh-huh.
So why don't they get the share of the blame?
They get the share of the blame because
but you're not giving
to do something.
Yeah, but you're not giving me any hello. Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we agree to disagree on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we could go on to something else. Yeah. Yes, Glendale.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always the guy at the top who gets the blame. It seems to me that somehow the managers ought to be highlighted somehow, because they get to stay in the shadows, and they're the ones that are the big technocrats. They're the one who comes in and said, who are appointed to these positions to execute, and they need to be held accountable. But again, I don't know. I don't know. It's very difficult to remove people in government. From the civil service. I don't know what means we have in terms of leverage that you can use to bring these people to the table.
So the only thing you have in your repertoire is to remove people?
No. I'm just saying you can make highlight of them, and you can bring. I don't know if you can replace them. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this,
Mr. Brand.
Let me ask you this: why would a person have a certain position and knowingly do not perform or do their work on the basis that it's hard to move me? That makes sense?
Well, at the end of the day, Mr. Brand, I don't know. You work in this stuff. You're a minister. Well, how do you deal with your managers in terms of reprimanding?
Well, let me go back to the question you asked about to remove. And I think that was the point that Webbo were trying to establish with the gentleman, that there is a structure. You of course have the minister, you have the permanent secretary and assistant permanent secretary. And for example, in my ministry, I have a number of directors, assistant directors, as the case may be. Then you have like your senior clerk, and then your junior clerk, and then your. So there is that fear, there is that layer. You are correct. It's not as easy to quote unquote remove someone from the civil service. You have to go through an entire process. You have the Public Service Commission that must be brought into being in that process. The government have some persons who are known as auxiliary workers and non-established workers. Those are a bit more easier to deal with in terms of, I'm using your language, get rid of them or terminate them. But the structure is that you have the minister, you have your permanent secretary, you have your directors. That is the structure that is in place. The minister would probably, the minister/cabinet will set the policy. The permanent secretary is the person who basically have overriding management of the various ministry that he is the permanent secretary. And then under him you have the various directors, that is the implementing agency, so to speak, of whatever the policy is, overseen by the permanent secretary. So it is a process in terms of as like I said, using your language, removing someone.
What leverage do you have, though, in terms of making that person an example, or in terms of reprimanding? What leverage do you have?
Well, the communication in terms of must comes from the permanent secretary. The minister himself does not. You would hardly ever find any correspondence or any communication coming from a minister to deal with these kind of matters. It's how the system is set up. The permanent secretary is the one who deal with those kind of communication. Of course, there must be some consultation and dialogue with the minister as to what are the issues, what are the challenges, and how they can mitigate those issues and those challenges. The minister, of course, have some weighing powers in terms of giving instructions as to what exactly it is that he wants to see happen. But the Public Service Commission is the Public Service Commission in terms of dealing with the civil service are basically the movers and the shakers of moving people around and disciplining people and those kind of things. Yeah.
Well, I think the responsibility or the blame, what we are talking about, can be transferred from the minister to the permanent secretary, when the public tends to always blame the minister. Because I think in this political culture that we live in, that we are part of, handed down from Britain, there's something called ministerial responsibility, which is very active in England, and that's why you find ministers of government, they resign so easy and so fast, because once something goes wrong in that department, whether it's way down the line, you are expected to take responsibility. And so that is, even though it's kind of watered down in our local political culture, but it does exist, and that's the reason why they are our representative. And then, of course, the minister can say, well, permanent secretary, you didn't know that the hospital roof needs to be looked after? It's hurricane season, and you should be, up to knowing these things. And of course, but the minister will get the blame. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. But again, I think the ministers really should be very active still. I mean, sometimes they sit in that position. I wouldn't say a cozy position, because most of them are always stressed out anyway. But they should be active, and sometimes overriding because they have authority over the permanent secretary. So they should be overriding and overreaching at times, making sure and insisting that these things be in place according to what is forthcoming, or what time of day or year or month it is, but because he's going to get the blame, or she's going to get the blame, being the minister. So I understand the structure. But I like a minister who is on the ground, whose feet on the ground, who is really hands-on as well. He's not always clean clothes and jacket and tie and up in the VIP area. He's down, ensuring. And I know, like you, Mr. Brand, you have a lot of various public works and other different things, and so maybe a little stress, or half stress, or 3/4 stress sometimes, But one should be active. But the public expect you to be, you know, in a sense, they voted for you. You know?
But no, I mean, at the end of the day, no, I think the public sees the ministers as the government. And all the other people, the functionaries who are running the system, they don't really see them as the government. So that's why they point to, you know, the public officials, the ministers. I think the operation of the government is in the shadows, so to speak, in the minds of the public, in terms of how people look at things.
Yeah,
so anything they blame, the minister must bear the brunt of the blame. So it's important, of course, that the minister has a deep interplay with you know.
Enough time the permanent secretary, them don't understand what is required and sometimes the urgency and by, you know, they're just not aware at times. And sometimes you like to talk to people who is aware. And sometimes you get a big job as a permanent secretary, but you don't understand what's a dustbin from a bad pan, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes you would like to talk to the minister that you hope will have better understanding, you know, of what you're talking about. And so the minister must be always accessible and ready to deal with, you know, queries that the permanent secretary sometimes can't handle. What I'm trying to say, the ministers must never be scarce, you know, must never be out of reach of the public. And, you know, because they're the ones who will always get the blame in this political culture in which we live, I suppose. But I would have liked to hear you, Mr. Brand, comment on the statistics about the food importation.
I actually
isn't
wrote
that
it,
surprising?
I wrote it down.
It's major.
I wrote down that comment that you made.
Yeah.
What I would say about it, Naya, it's well. Let me put a caveat on it first. I have not seen that report.
Okay.
I have not had sight of it.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm realizing, and let us look at the Navy's context in terms of the importation of food. And I think tonight, someone spoke about data and access to data. And if you dig deeper into the data, the category of those food items that we are importing. The question that I would ask is, what are the categories of food that we are, one, so heavily dependent on / importing, and can, as a country that is trying to promote food security, produce those items? I want to look at it from that. I'm going to give you a real example. I remember just recently we had some importation of pork into the country. I think it came from Brazil or somewhere down south. And the cost per pound of that imported meat was significantly less than the pork produced here on the island. Mark you, we do not necessarily know all that went into that South American pork in terms of the feed, how they were treated, the whole chemistry of them. Here on the island of Nevis, you know exactly what you are getting. That was an anomaly as to why is it that we can import a meat product from a place down south, getting it to Nevis, and it is more.
Can be so cheaper.
The local product is a lot more expensive than the imported product. Those are some areas that I feel that if we are serious about food security, we have to be able to get to the root of that and analyze those scenarios. You go into the supermarkets and you see all of these certain food items that just cannot be grown here. The grape, the the plums, some of those, and those are imported almost twice a week, heavily, right? My question is, what percentage of our food importation bill are food items that we either are not growing or cannot be grown in the region? I think that we need to also look at it from that angle. Now, I'm going to go to a different food product, chicken. St. Kitts and Nevis and the region consume a significant amount of chicken, right? The importation bill on chicken is into the region is substantial, right? A lot of territories. I mean, you drive around St. Kitts and Nevis and you see almost around every corner somebody is barbecuing chicken, somebody is doing something with chicken. It's a product that you can do a whole lot of things with, right? The demand of that particular item, right, is such that we are now attempting to try and offset that importation by doing some stuff here locally with chicken. Those are some of the areas now where I think that we have to dig a little deeper. One, what are some of the items that we are importing? Can they be grown in the region? Two, the cost of importation versus what we are producing them here locally for. And three, the demand on some items is so high that even throughout the various islands, you really can't keep up with the demand. Now, with all of that said, Naya, I think that us as a region, and we can speak about from, I'm going to include Cuba in this. Let's look at from Cuba, go all the way down to Guyana, right? How much inter-regional trade are we doing with each other when it comes to food security in the region? It is a question that I feel that as a region we have to take a serious look at, because it is almost easier for us to import something from Miami than importing it from Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, down south. I mean, if we and Webbo always tell us to try and have an honest conversation. If we want to have an honest conversation about food security, what is the level of connectivity between the various islands so that we can feed off of each other? And I think as well that is a major challenge, right? Sometimes you order something from, for example, Trinidad, Guyana. You know that product have to end up in Miami before it come back down to Nevis. Because of how the shipping and how the shipment thing is set up. I think that the region on a whole, when we think about food security, I think that the interconnectivity and the trading between each island, that is something that I feel can really go a long way in solving one, that huge importation bill that we are seeing from overseas, and two, we have to begin to look at producing some of the items that we are importing that we are not producing.
Well, you know, Minister, we can speak in general terms, yes, but you know we have a problem here, and I don't think agriculture going to move with this problem, and I am not sure also that that the government has a solution or has it as some kind of major or any priority at all. And the monkey is a problem, okay? It's not a small problem when we speak about agriculture in Nevis. It's a giant problem, you know, because when we speak towards the grapes in the supermarket, the plums in the supermarket, I find myself in the supermarket buying these grapes and plums too, because what? There's no local fruits, right? There's simply no local fruits. I mean, mangoes and what else? You know, the melon is under attack. I've just come from another Caribbean island, and I have not find myself in the supermarket to buy any kind of grapes or any kind of supermarket fruits, because there are so much fruits you know, but we're dealing with a giant problem called the
We
monkeys.
can, in addressing the matter of food security in this country, we're just playing games and kicking the can down the road unless we deal with the monkey problem. Period. And no matter what study we do, or no matter how much we look at whatever we look at, if we are attempting to address the matter, the food security matter, and we're serious about it, the monkey problem is a cornerstone. I think is a linchpin to you have to attack first,
Yes, sir.
because the farmers them are frustrated.
Yeah.
You understand? They're not going to. At least a lot of them has thrown up their hands and walk away.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Yes.
in terms of diversity of foods and encouraging them and giving them the feel that they can be encouraged to produce food, unless you have a policy that will deal with the monkey problem, whether it's culling, as they call it, or however you do it, it has to be dealt with. The population is beyond measure as far from what I mean. Yeah,
We're starving
maybe
for
15, 20,000.
for healthy
So
food.
let's
here.
get serious about it. If you're going to talk about
it's
it,
not a
let's
joke.
deal with that first.
It's a fundamental thing. It's a plague.
One of the things that we have done recently, and going back to the matter of the monkey problem, we have sought to legislate the destruction / construction of buildings above the 1,000-foot mark. We have gone into Parliament. We have passed a resolution to give some protection to, because what we have seen over the years is that there continued to be this progression of building higher up, at higher levels, interfering with some of the habitat for some of those species. And the fear is that the more you go higher up to their natural habitat and destroy their food source, one, interfere with their ecosystem, then their natural progression would be that they would come down to lower levels to look for food. So we have sought to deal with that aspects of it. Then you put the idea, or the one of the particular solutions on the table is culling and dealing with reducing the monkey population. It is something that I feel that, and I agree with you, and I agree with Naya, that if we are to continue the progression that we are making in agriculture, however small and however incremental, that has to be something that must be on the table as well to deal with some of these challenges.
Yep.
Okay, let me see whether or not that I can introduce one of the other things that I also wanted to introduce, right? In the United States, today or recently, they passed a bill that will prohibit or make people who do it pay. Those who decide to put stuff on the internet, naked people without permissions and so on and so forth. And my question is whether or not that was long in coming, and whether or not it was inevitable, and not only that, but other content, including that defame people and stuff like that, whether or not it was inevitable that they had to do it, and whether or not they took too long to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate, highly appropriate. I mean, how long they took, I mean, it could have been done earlier, but I'm sure with everybody understand with the advent of AI now, where anybody can use AI, and let's take, I could take Naya and present his, him in a different light, and you can't get away with that sort of thing and defaming him. AI is becoming more prevalent. It's going to be in every sector of our lives. From manufacturing to, it's going to be just every sector. You can go to ChatGPT or whatever and just create AI, it's it's where we're heading, and they have to begin to protect people's integrity, people's lives and livelihoods, and this is the only way. You have to have teeth, some laws with teeth, and I think this act is a bold move in the right direction. I hope I'm sure the Europeans are going to follow just now, and the rest of the world. Our country here in St. Kitts Nevis, as we always say, we want to take it back here, because we've had examples around here where that sort of thing has happened, where people, information or things that was done in private was bastardized and splashed all over the internet, and people have been ferried out to court for that, and money's had to be passed for that sort of thing. So I think it's heading in the right direction.
Heading in the right direction, yes, an absolute necessity. There must be some kind of boundaries, there must be some kind of limitation. You just cannot, of course, there are the defamation laws and so forth already being in place. But I think with the advancement of technology, a lot of people can find ways around such laws, and so a new legislation must be brought forward to circumnavigate, and further development, as Glendale speak to. Those advancement can really be destructive to one character. One's business, it was inevitable that such laws would have. You just can't have a world where people can put things online and cause havoc.
And the fascinating thing about artificial intelligence, fascinating, once you set it up, right? You set up a character, or however you call that stuff. Once you set it up, it has a life of its own, and its brain power. Once the algorithm is so wide, it's inconceivable. The human being cannot outthink it. It can go beyond in any area, in any direction that the human being didn't even perceive it will go to. That person will go to. You understand? I'm talking about thinking outside the box, doing things that that can also be hurt mankind and a livelihood or a quality of life, or the way we choose to live our lives. So policing this. Policing the internet is one thing, but policing AI is another thing of another matter. It's way bigger than all this.
Webbo,
let me introduce something here. Yeah. When it comes to people and human beings, because at the end of the day, whether it's AI, GI, GH, EH, or what, right? It comes on with people. And if you didn't know, if you didn't have any example before, look at what happened after President Trump come around the second time, and see how all the so-called money people line up behind him, even the AI people, and etc., etc., etc. So, talking in this intellectual way and so on is fine, but at the end of the day, like I have some police friends, and I will say to them, these fellas really in a bad man, everybody afraid police. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, once you put certain things in place and so on, people will think accordingly. How many bad fellas you see, and then when the law or whatever get tough with them, they cry. So all this AI and this stuff like that, if you have the courage to put the thing in place and stick with it, because don't forget, it coming from the Bible. We are different because men or humans, we organize ourselves in a structured way. But hitherto, we behave just like the animals. We get certain urges, etc., and we exhibit certain control. Then we exercise that. And then we have structures. We say, okay, we'll do things this way or that way, etc., etc. And then you have a small percentage of people who decide, we're not doing it. And so you make certain laws. And then you have certain things that you say majority rule. etc. That's how it is operated. So whether it be AI or SB or whatever, right? It's how we organize it.
Webbo, you put this matter on the table and you went all the way to the United States. I believe it was just very recently in our national parliament where no less a person than the Attorney General sought to discuss this very same matter in Parliament. And the outcry and the ruckus that was made over what the AG was saying. Because some people feel, Webbo, that they have one of these gadgets and they sit behind a computer and they can say what they want, when they want, and how they want about anybody, and there is no consequence, right? This is something, Webbo, that has been long in coming, right? We all could go back and we all could look at no less a person than Princess Diana and how she was basically horrified of the tabloids and some of the articles and so on that they published. Some people may say that it was because of those publications and so on and that she ended up dying, right? It is something, Webbo, that I feel that our society has become or reached to a point where Glendale spoke about AI and you put in all kind of other eyes and so on and so forth. That at the end of the day, I don't think that people have the right to say things about you that they very well... The problem is, Webbo, that a lot of them know that what they are saying is not true, you know. And there is no consequence. And I feel, Webbo, that we now have to get to a point where these kind of publications, these kind of make-up stories. I saw on one of those, I think it's on YouTube, where I believe it was either the Prime Minister or some other leader was doing some remarkable dance. Right, Webbo? And I said, but wait, I don't know that this gentleman can dance, that and AI generated and so on.
No, you don't mean Eric?
No, I know Eric can dance.
You know Eric could dance, okay.
Right, but Webbo, the point that I'm getting at is that the level of publication and the level of don't care attitude, it has to be reined in. And like I said, the AG was alluding to this a few months ago, and there was this uproar that well, who he think he be? He trying to take away people's freedom and.
Yeah.
But the fact is, Webbo, that there are some people who use this tool in a kind of reckless, in a kind of way that they feel that they can destroy people.
You'll always have people who do that, but Fox News.
Yes.
Remember what they did?
Well, they did a lot of things. Which one?
No, but they did a lot of things and they were sued.
Yes.
And they got a lot of big judgment against them, etc.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you see they're cool now?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to have the courage to do certain things and the temperament. Sometimes not what you do also to, you know, but it's how you do it. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Good evening, you're on the air. Could you go ahead?
I want to ask the minister a question. You mentioned about the South Africa workers that they easy to manage. Like South Africa, man, you got two different nations, you know. But you know, the step, I mean, the guys and the youth is different. But they just get some compensation, they'll pass and they create something back. But I want to know, I can't hear too good, but I could see good. So I want to ask Brian a question, and he could just raise his hand, and I'm going to see his hand. Hello?
Yeah, sir, just go ahead and we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Okay. He mentioned that the workers on the side easier to manage and the regular workers. But I want to know if that's the reason why he laid them off in December 8th and never come back until March. I mean, if he's the minister in charge of that, you could eat a money, you could plate of food for a whole week, and you eat a plate of food, and that make you happy? How could you send home workers from December 8th and bring them back March? And passing them every day like nothing happened? These people got trained and grandchildren watching them Christmas to get something, and these guys just drive up and down like this merry-go-round like this.
Okay, caller, so work with me. What you want to ask him?
Who make the decision to send home the guy December 8th and bring them back March?
Right, so you want to ask him what? If he made the decision?
Who made the decision?
Who make the decision? Okay, work with me.
December 8th and bring them back March.
Okay, so you said so he must raise his hand if he make the decision, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, after I make a good work, it's good.
And if he doesn't raise his hand, if he wasn't the one who make the decision, then don't raise his hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Work with me. What is it, Mr. Brand? Hello. He cannot hear too well. So, what? You're raising your hand or you're not raising it?
Well, I have to give an explanation.
No, but he wouldn't hear you. That's what the man is saying. So, here is the question.
Yes.
If you made the decision to send home the workers, raise your hand. If it wasn't you, do not raise your hand.
There has to be an explanation. I am sorry.
Okay, so you sent them home, and you want to give an explanation.
It has been a policy, Webbo. That has been a long-standing policy.
Work with me.
Yes.
You made the decision to send them home, right? But it's been a policy.
Yes.
Okay, so raise your hand.
Well, I'm raising my hand, Webbo.
Okay, good.
Right?
So just raise it and you will see.
But Webbo, like I said, I think I need to give the gentleman...
But the gentleman said he cannot hear too good, so he wouldn't be... You didn't hear that part?
I heard that part.
So you still want to tell him, although he can't hear? The gentleman said if you'd made the decision, raise your hand. If you didn't, don't raise it.
Webbo, I hear you.
There's something called communication and effective communication. Yes. A man tells you he cannot hear. So you can still want to explain?
But my hand is raised.
Raise it by the camera. Right, good. Okay. So, caller, you saw his hand?
A little bit, but...
I think that's the right moment for the night.
No, but
go ahead, caller. Go ahead.
He should have done the appropriate thing and just raise his hand, and make it simple.
Okay, good. Walk with me, caller. Although I know you can't hear too well, but he raised it, and so I think that settles it. Fair enough?
Well, I'm going to try to hear good.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, Mr. Brand, go ahead and explain now so that the other people can hear.
I think it warrants an explanation. I think that the general public knows that we normally go into Parliament in December to pass a budget for the following year. That budget cycle ends at the end of December every year. And then in January we go through another cycle where we go into the House, pass a budget, and then there is this drawdown from the budget for non-established salaries. That has been, Webbo, a long-standing procedure within the service. I would go a bit further, Webbo, that two of the departments that I have oversight over, Public Works and Water Department in particular, at the end of the year, they use that period, Webbo, to give what we call the vacation time. You know, a lot of work is not necessarily going on within that period, so a lot of the workers are asked to go home for a few months. I hear what the caller is saying. It has been an issue. From where I sit, Webbo, I try to make sure that we bring those workers back on as quickly as possible. but it has been a long-standing practice that in December, once the budget cycle is completed, a lot of these non-established workers, what we will call in local parlance, is asked to take some time off. For some time, let's be until February. He said until March. Bring them back sometime at the end of February, early March, and that has been a long-standing policy.
Okay, so who's got the last word?
Well, again, we have the public look at the ministers as the government, bottom line. And that's why they always blame the ministers for everything.
That's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Map. Join Keith Carborough on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. It's a place that you can spend all of your evenings right here on the Eastern Caribbean Spa House. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Ready to save while you build? Now you can at Builders Paradise. Yes, shoppers, build up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right, Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, earn more, only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and brush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
The views and opinions